Welcome back. You're still watching Business Morning. Now let's move to the first conversation for today. Urbanization across Africa is accelerating at an unprecedented rate, and with it comes the growing demand for sustainable housing, resilient infrastructure, and also inclusive community development. Yet, many cities continue to grapple with challenges such as inadequate planning, rising housing costs, and increasing vulnerability to climate-related disasters. Today on Business Morning, we explore how to grow sustainable and impactful initiatives in urban planning and housing, focusing on innovative approaches to community resilience, affordable housing, and sustainable urban growth. Joining us to discuss this is Oluwasegun James. He's a graduate student in urban and regional planning and sustainability advocate at the University of Florida. He also specializes in sustainable communities, disaster resilience, and affordable housing development. Good morning, James. It's good to have you on the Business Morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, let's begin with an overview. What does sustainability actually mean in the context of urban planning and housing?
So when we talk about sustainability in urban planning and housing, we're talking about building cities that can meet people's needs today. And what are these needs? Housing, transportation, and then jobs, without destroying, the environment or limiting the future generations to enjoy, these things, these needs, meeting their needs, basically. So in simple terms, it's about balance, ensuring economic growth, protecting the environment, and then promoting social inclusion all at once. So for example, in Florida, I've seen sustainable housing design, includes energy efficient buildings, green roofs, flood resilient construction, all to protect people from environmental hazard like hurricanes and all that. So in Nigeria, this might mean, building affordable homes with proper drainage channels and access to public transport, or ensuring that communities in flood-prone areas, just like we have in Lagos or Ibadan, they have climate resilient infrastructure. So sustainability isn't a luxury. So it is how we ensure that our city remain livable for decades and even for centuries to come.
Why is it so crucial for developing regions, especially in Africa, to prioritize sustainability in their urban planning strategies?
Oh, that's a very good question. So let me start by saying that Africa is urbanizing really fast, and by I think by 2050, more than 1.3 billion Africans would live in cities. So, but this rapid growth often happens without proper planning, leading to overcrowding, poor infrastructure, and we can also think about unsafe housing, right? So if we don't plan sustainably, we'll keep chasing problems instead of solving them. So for instance, Lagos grew about 77 people per hour, 70, around 70, 77 people per hour. Yet housing and infrastructure haven't kept pace. So that's why sustainability, isn't just a buzzword. It's actually survival. So when cities plan ahead with resilient housing in mind, clean energy, efficient transportation, they save billions in future recovery costs. According to World Bank, every $1 spent on resilience planning saves about $4 in disaster recovery. Yeah.
Impactful or remain just a policy on paper?
Okay. I would say three things. So the first and the foremost is implementation. So this is where many good plan fails. In Nigeria, for example, we have strong policies like the housing policy, but they often don't move beyond paper because of limited funding. We also see weak follow-up systems. We see changes in government. These ideas are like providing affordable housing or, urban renewal, but without clear steps, even accountability and proper monitoring, they don't reach people who need them most. A good example is social housing program. It aims to help low income earners, but without affordable mortgage options or enforcement, many people can't benefit, right? But on the other hand, you see in the developed region, I will use Gainesville, for instance, where I live, you know, affordable housing action plan is a good success story here. It includes practical steps like, beyond just having these policies in paper, we really want to see practical steps to adjusting zoning rules just to allow housing types and encourage building green building, building prototypes just to like make sure that people have access to these things, provide practical steps. And this constantly involve community through feedback sessions also. People really want to be involved in this process. The city also track its process and they fund plan properly. And that's how ideas turn into results. And the second one is inclusion. I think I mentioned that briefly. Community inclusion is also very key. When people are part of the process, you realize that from identifying the problem to shaping the solution, they take ownership. In Nigeria, many projects fail because they are designed from the top, without taking or talking to the people, without taking ideas from people or initiative, or say concluding their own input in the plan. But when you engage communities, like through local association, interest groups, the project tend to last longer. Finally, I would say continuity. Many projects in our country don't survive changes in leadership. Each new government starts fresh and we lose progress. And, that's already been made over time. So in developed regions, for instance, in Florida, partnership between groups like, where I work, for instance, as a researcher, Florida Housing Coalition, the local governments, they help ensure that the plans continue no matter who is in the office. They use data and collaboration to keep things moving. So in summary, real impact happens when policies are implemented properly, and when people are included, and when efforts continue over time. When citizens see themselves in plan, they help protect it. That's when policies truly become progress and not just, what is written on the paper.
All right, let's now take a look at the challenges and opportunities. We understand that many Africans or African cities struggle with informal settlement and inadequate infrastructure. So, how do you think urban planners can balance rapid urbanization with sustainable growth?
That's a very good question. So how urban planners can balance rapid urbanization with sustainable growth? Um, Study shows that informal settlements house over 60% of urban dwellers in sub-Saharan Africa. And the answer to your question, isn't to clear them out, but to upgrade them. I've seen examples even in Nigeria. Ogun State government, for instance, they've done a great job in regularizing some of these communities. Due to the pressure in Lagos, development has sprung up even in places where they were not originally designated for people to live in. But just because of the pressure, people want to stay close to work and all that. And then as a result of that, development started springing up in all of these places that were not originally marked or designated for residential purpose. So Ogun State government, I would say, regularize some of these communities and it's just like bringing them into the plan and just upgrading them. I was fortunate to be part of the project where we kind of did, development guide plans for some of these communities along Lagos Ibadan Expressway. So we don't necessarily have to clear them out, but to upgrade them, improve access to clean water, sanitation, and transport while even keeping people where they are. An example, Makoko community, um, simple interventions like, lights, raised walkways, so floating schools, have made a huge difference. So, urban planners must also promote compact growth, cities that grow upward and not outward, reducing that would reduce travel times. It will preserve our land for future, because this is sustainability we are talking about, and that is what a planner should bear in mind. We can see a lot of examples in the developed region. Florida's, for instance, the Comprehensive Planning Act offers lessons, and one of these lessons that stands out from this act is the fact that it requires every city to integrate environmental protection with land use planning. That's the kind of structure African cities need. Yeah.
All right, so let's now we know that affordable housing actually remain a pressing issue no matter how we want to put it. So from your experience, what innovative approach can make housing both sustainable and also accessible?
That's a very thoughtful question. What innovative approaches can make housing both sustainable and accessible? Um, so that's one of the most urgent challenges facing our cities today, not just in Nigeria, I mean everywhere, even the developed regions. So for many Nigerians, owning or even renting a decent home has become almost impossible. Studies show that Nigeria has a housing deficit of over 20 million units, and the average cost of a modest two-bedroom apartment in many cities is far beyond what most people can afford. So when we talk about innovation in this context, so it is not just about innovation, is not just about technology, right? It's about creating systems. System in this context, system that can make housing truly accessible. So from what I have learned working with organizations, here, um, one key lesson is that government intervention makes all the difference. In Florida, the state has a housing trust fund that supports low-income families through mortgage assistance. In other states also, and even in the Europe, you hear about rent stabilization, you hear about affordable housing programs. I mean, these policies keep people from being pushed or being priced out of the cities or being pushed out of their homes. So Nigeria needs something similar, a stronger public housing finance system. The government can provide low interest mortgage option for working class and expand rent.
James, if you can hear us, please can you unmute your mic? We can't hear you.
We need to we need better rent regularization in cities like Lagos. Rents can jump by 50% in a single year. And I mean, it's so unfair. A rent stabilization policy can cap sudden increase. So that's what is done in developed region. It will go a long way in protecting tenants. So on the sustainability side, we can reduce costs by building smarter homes, but for example, using our local materials. A lot of studies, a lot of research has been made to, identify some of these materials that, can, be cheap in terms of construction, and they are also very strong, and they will give you the structural stability that you need. So communities can also be part of the building process, what we call incremental housing. This is also an approach that can be adopted, where homes are built in phases as people grows in income. Lastly, I would also mention that public-private partnership are also very essential. Government alone cannot meet the housing demand. So the developers, the financial institutions, the community cooperative, for instance, they all need to be involved. They all need to come together with clear incentives to make project affordable and environmentally responsible.
All right, you've worked on disaster resilience and housing vulnerability. How do you think urban planning can help cities prepare for and also recover from climate-related disasters?
So can you say that one more time?
So I said you've worked on disaster resilience and housing vulnerability. So how do you think urban planning can help these cities prepare for and also recover from climate-related disasters?
Thank you. That's a very critical question because, climate-related disasters are no longer distant events. They are happening right where people live. Urban planning is actually the first line of defense against disaster. Because how we plan our cities determine how vulnerable or resilient our communities become. Where I reside, I currently conduct research, urban planning and and housing policies are guided by flood zone mapping here and even reads that data. The states use they use clearly defined zones like FEMA flood zone, zone 8. Like they have this category. They just categorize these floods based on how severe they can be to determine where housing can or cannot be built. So, and what elevation or drainage requirements, apply. So this means that before a new housing project begins, planners already know the level of flood exposure and they just design accordingly. However, in Nigeria, that system is there, but maybe not yet consistent. So we often see residential developments on floodplains, wetlands, drainage corridors and all that, places that naturally absorb water. So when those are blocked or built upon, the result is flooding. We've seen a lot of situation. We've seen a lot of we've had a lot of news of flood events that has displaced millions of people, destroyed thousands of homes, and have affected, a lot of lives. So that's not just a climate issue, it's a planning issue. So my ongoing research on flood exposure and affordable housing vulnerability here in collaboration with some, research centers has revealed that in some Florida counties, over 25% of affordable housing units fall within high-risk zones. So that means low-income households are disproportionately affected by floods. So we see a similar trend in Nigeria where informal settlement and low-cost housing areas are usually located on marginal land. So um, that's because that's where the land is cheap. So planning is very, very, we need to really do better, use our data effectively, and we are
All right.
important in this course.
Finally, James, before I let you go, what's your vision for the future of sustainable urban planning in Africa, and what gives you hope that we can actually get there? If you can hear us, Mr. James. All right. Thank you so much. We had
Brilliant.
Oluwasegun James, a graduate student in urban and regional planning and sustainability advocate at the University of Florida. Thank you so much for that insight. Still to come after the break, we have Beyond Empowering Youth Through Technology and Innovation. So just stay with us. Welcome back. Now we're going to move to the second conversation on the Business Morning today. Africa's digital landscape is evolving rapidly with technology shaping new opportunities for growth, entrepreneurship, and inclusion. From mobile applications and fintech to artificial intelligence and digital education, young Africans are driving innovation across sectors. Yet, challenges such as limited access to digital infrastructure, inadequate skills, and policy gaps continue to slow progress. Today on Business Morning, we discuss how Africa can truly drive its digital future by empowering young people with the tools, platforms, and skills to lead technological transformation across the continent. Joining us to discuss this is Mami Esiaido Victoria. She's a digital transformation specialist with extensive experience in technology, leadership, and youth empowerment. She currently works in the technology and telecommunications sector, focusing on digital engagement and innovation. Good morning, Victoria. It's good to have you on the Business Morning Show.
Good morning. Good morning, and happy to be here.
All right, so let's begin with an overview. So when we talk about driving Africa's digital future, what does that really mean in practical terms?
I like that question, especially the in practical terms. So, Africa's digital future really is all about solving local challenges with scalable digital solutions, ensuring that inclusion is at the heart of the innovation. And so, when we go practically, we are thinking about a farmer in Ghana using a mobile app to be able to have real time market pricing instead of relying on intermediaries. We are talking about, for instance, in Estonia, where you have 99% of their government services being digitalized. We are talking about Rwanda, who have created digital identity systems that allow citizens to be able to access healthcare, bank accounts, educational records instantly. These are some of the practical things we are talking about when we really think about Africa's digital future. And it's really not about what is yet to come, but we are looking at optimizing our massive trade infrastructure. We talk about the African trade continental system. We are talking about having practical things, for instance, as a logistics manager in Lagos, who is able to use an AI-powered platform to be able to predict port traffic and also reroute goods before congestion happens. These are the practical things I think about, talking about the whole supply chain system to make our continent much more competitive. Those are some of the things I think about when you ask me to talk about Africa's digital future.
All right, so how would you assess Africa's current digital transformation journey, particularly in terms of youth participation and innovation?
Our digital transformation journey, I would say, is rapidly accelerating, but unfortunately, it's also highly uneven. Rapidly accelerating because we are the continent that has the highest adoption of mobile technology. And so, for instance, we have over 50% of sub-Saharan Africa being subscribed to mobile services. And that figure is rapidly increasing. But it's not just about we having the mobile phones or the smartphones. But then with the power of the mobile phones, we literally have our banking system in the palm of our hands. We have our classrooms in the palm of our hands. We have our healthcare gateway system in the palm of our hands. I know, yes, we need to move beyond the 2G and the 3G to affordable 4G and 5G. But then let's look at our fintech ecosystem, for instance. We are literally leading, like I said earlier, when it comes to mobile money adoption. We are also seeing a lot of unicorn companies being built by founders that are below 35, or even if I want to stretch it, 40 years. And so we as the youth are not just participating, we actually are the ones who are driving the innovation when it comes to agriculture, when it comes to edutech, when it comes to fintech. So for me, when you think about Africa's digital transformation journey, it's rapidly accelerating, but unfortunately, it's highly uneven. And so you have certain markets that are all the way at the top, but unfortunately, we also have certain markets that do not even see these technologies at all.
What unique opportunities does Africa's youthful population present in shaping the continent's tech-driven future?
For that question, the answer actually lies within the question, and it has to do with the fact that we are a growing continent. So the youth really are the answer when it comes to that particular question. We are our greatest competitive asset. We are a ready digital workforce. Our consumer base is huge, unlike any other region. We have the youngest population globally. We are digitally native. We are highly adaptable, and we are motivated by the need for solutions. When you go across the different countries within Africa and you join hackathons or you join these events and you speak to people, you hear a lot about people thinking about solutions for the problems that exist today. And so that presents us with a very fine opportunity for us to think and leapfrog above the Western solutions that today exist, but then think about what is in it for me as an African in an African country and the problems that I have to be able to solve. And so by investing in the skills of this massive youth group that we are as a continent, our ingenuity, our sheer size alone is enough to guarantee that we become the primary architects of Africa's digital future.
Let's now take a look at the challenges and the gaps. Because despite the progress, we still see issues like digital divide and low digital literacy. So, what are the biggest barriers preventing young Africans from fully harnessing technology?
So, in as much as I talk about the fact that we are a large workforce ready to take it on, I consider two main things as the challenges. The first is access, and the second is affordability. So when I talk access, I'm referring to having it, right? Having that reliable internet infrastructure, especially in our rural areas. And then when I talk about affordability, I'm talking about the cost of data and services, because the crucial part really is digital literacy. And how can you have a better digital literacy if there is no access? Our young people need to be able to use or have access to these technologies. Yes, we are good when it comes to social media, but the truth is that we lack the foundational skills literally around how to learn. And so, yes, we can go on all the social media sites that exist, but there's more to technology advancements than social media. We need to be able to learn the necessary skills to be able to add value to who we are as Africans, and then to not just consuming content, but really creating the code that will help us.
So, how do you think public and private sectors can collaborate? Because at the end of the day, the government cannot do it alone. So, how do you think they can come together and collaborate to improve access to digital infrastructure, also funding and mentorship for youth-led tech initiatives?
Right. In order to bridge the divide, and I think it flows straight from the question you just asked, it's important that we treat digital infrastructure and digital literacy as essential public goods. The way we look at water, the way we look at our healthcare system, the way we look at shelter. It's about time we also look at digital literacy as part. And that's why collaboration is very, very important. And collaboration is actually very critical. And so it's not just about governments, but we also need to think about the private sectors. And for me, I call that a smart public-private partnership, where both entities are sharing the risk and also sharing the reward as well. For infrastructure, governments can actually offer tax breaks and then spectrums to be able to provide, for instance, our private telecommunication companies with the necessary tools that they need to be able to roll out fiber in underserved rural areas. When you come to our big cities, it's obvious that, yes, the rollout is going on, but then we also need to consider the underserved rural areas. When it comes to funding, we should be able to think of a blended finance model where government can give the initial seed capital and then also ensure some guarantee of risk, and encouraging the private sector to also go into venture capitalists and then also give out or give back, providing mandatory mentorship. And so, for instance, a government can say, okay, as a government, I am going to give you this, but then at the end of the day, I need you to be able to commit certain hours to be able to mentor the youth within this region where you are serving. I think collaboration is not just about sharing the money, but it's also about sharing the vision as well as the risk, so that the public sector sets the agenda for inclusion and the private sector drives innovation and speed.
All right. So, as someone involved in digital transformation, what policies and also ecosystem do you think, would you like to see accelerate innovation in Africa?
Whoa. I think the most urgent change I am looking forward to is to have a continental digital identity as well as a payment harmonization. And so a number of people will probably agree with me I'm just coming back from a conference which was held in Africa. It was actually held in South Africa. And even the payment for that conference was a hurdle for some of the countries because we do not have any payment harmonization systems. Yes, I know within certain parts of the sub-region, they are trying to put together payment platforms and not to allow, but as a continent, we need to think beyond just our sub-region, so not just West Africa, East Africa, Southern Africa, and all of that, but we should think of ourselves as one and have that digital identity and then payment harmonization. So imagine a young developer in Togo building an app, and then immediately he wants to scale that app to say Benin or even Nigeria. They hit a wall just because there are different KYC requirements, there are fragmented payment systems. And this friction really kills scalability. And so most of the time, our solutions are suited for just our countries, and it becomes difficult to move it outside. On policy again, I'm thinking of governments or many governments showing more commitment. So for instance, in my home country, Ghana, we have the digital transformation agenda. I know Kenya also has a similar thing, and they are actively formulating policies to support technology talent and simplifying the regulations for startups. When we make it easy to move digital services across African borders, it means that we are going to also make it easy for ourselves and scale up to be able to have more youth-led innovation that will drive the continent's digital future forward.
All right. You've worked extensively in youth leadership and ministry. How can technology be used not just for economic gain, but also for purpose-driven impact and community transformation?
Thank you. So I consider technology as a driving force, right? It's simply a tool which we can use to make life and work easy. However, the true power of technology lies in its ability to be able to amplify purpose. Because at the end of the day, what exactly is the purpose behind everything and anything that we do? So, for instance, when we think of technology or we think of digital transformation, most of the time the focus is always towards the money, it's always towards what is the need for me. But we should look at community, and we see how technology can really drive community when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to civic technologies, when it comes to ensuring transparency. So today, in many countries, you would have election violence just because we could not add some bits of technology to our election systems. In healthcare, I should be able to move between hospitals and then not have my information being lost in transit. When it comes to our faith, when it comes to our values, when it comes to our coding skills, we should be able to create solutions that fix the systematic problems that we have and not just about earning profit. We should be able to teach our youth that success is not just about the size of your bank accounts, but actually the size of the positive impact that their innovation brings to their community. Because at the end of the day, when we have these tools and we don't use them to our advantage, the tools really become useless.
So, what practical steps do you think young professionals can take to build successful careers in the digital economy or launch impactful digital projects?
I think my advice is simple: learn, learn, learn. Firstly, constantly learn. There are a lot of free online courses from global universities that are focusing on high demand skills like data science, like UI, UX, artificial intelligence, blockchain technology, and all of that. The first thing we need to be able to do is to learn. We need to know about these skills. It's important that you know, because really, if we do not know, then how do you use the tools? The second advice for me will be for young people to build a portfolio. Today, you can't say you are waiting for a job. No, you have to start something on your own. It may be a small project that involves solving a certain small local problem, even if it's just a simple website for a market woman out there. Do that, because at the end of the day, it becomes a proof of your skill and not really a proof of your diploma or a proof of your certificate. Do you have the skills to be able to do the next big thing? The third advice for me would be network. You can't stay in your shell or you can't stay in your corner and think you are going to make it. Let us move beyond just staying within our local corners. Let's engage each other, not just horizontally, but even vertically. But first of all, let's connect with our peers. Let's connect with people who think like us, who are like us. There are so many tech hubs today. There are so many technology accelerators today. Your peers really are often your first co-founders. And so when you look at most companies that have, or startups that have come up, you will notice that most of the time they are peers that have come together. And so if you do not network, they won't be able to leverage our skills. And so my advice is simple: learn, build your portfolio, and then network. Yeah.
Right, so how can mentorship, leadership development, and also digital inclusion programs help bridge the gender gap in Africa's tech ecosystem?
Oh, the gender gap. So I actually agree that targeted programs are essential because the gender gap is really not about ability. So it's not like we have put a specific group or a gender, particular gender, to go ahead and then take up digital skills or digital jobs. However, it's really about exposure. It's really about confidence. It's about visibility. And so to be able to bridge that digital gender gap, we really need to be able to expose the other gender to these skills, to these technologies. And so I think that we need mentorship that connects young women with senior female tech leaders. And what that does is that it demonstrates that this is attainable. When I know or I see a female leader in technology, because I am female, the first thing it tells me is that because she has, I can. And that is very, very important because once I can see it, then I can be it. And so I actually believe that these inclusion programs must start early. We don't necessarily have to wait till we are at the university level or even the senior high schools, but then from the very lower, the basic school, we should be able to present these figures to our females so that they can see it and then it affects their mindset and it goes down with them. Because I was fortunate to have that as well. Because I could see a female tech leader, I knew I could become a female tech leader.
All right, so finally now, Victoria, what's your vision for Africa's digital future, and what gives you confidence that the continent's youth can lead that transformation?
Okay, my confidence. Well, first, let me talk about the vision. My vision for Africa when it comes to digital transformation is not just about we being digitally enabled, but more importantly, for us to be digitally independent. So I want us to be that continent that exports innovation to the world than just consuming it. We have become consumers for a very long time. And so my vision is for us to become that continent that now exports our innovation, all those ideas, the wild solutions that we have, we should be able to export it to the outside world, so outside our continent. And my confidence when it comes to seeing this vision coming to fruition, it really has to do with our resilience as African youth. I am a young African woman, and so when I think about what goes on in my life and even across the continent, I meet young people every day. And when you think about the infrastructural challenges that we have, the financial challenges we have, the educational hurdles that exist, but at the same time, you see people building very wild solutions, creating world-class solutions, coding, and then ensuring consider us the hustlers of the digital economy. And as a hustler, one thing about hustling is the fact that you must have shared determination. You must have that determination. So my confidence around seeing Africa's digital future really comes from our shared determination that we have as young African men and women.
Thank you so much for your insight this morning on the Business Morning, Victoria. It was really good to have you on the show.
Happy to be here as well. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
All right, that's been our focus today on Business Morning, growing sustainable and impactful initiatives in urban planning and housing. and also driving Africa's digital future that's empowering youth through technology and innovation. So before we go, I'm going to give my take on the second conversation that we had today, which is driving Africa's digital future, empowering youth through technology and innovation. So you see, everyone keeps talking about Africa's digital future. Well, let's be honest, we're already living in it. Now, from fintech to fashion tech, from AI to content creation, young Africans are building empires out of ideas. They are turning Wi-Fi and willpower into opportunity. But here's the catch. Innovation isn't magic. It's not just coding or creating an app. It's the mindset. It's seeing a problem and deciding you're not waiting for permission to fix it, just like Victoria, our guest, mentioned. Now, the tools are in our hands, literally. I'm talking about laptops, smartphones, and even online platforms. That's the new land, that's the new oil, and also the new frontier. And the youth who understand that are already cashing out on the digital gold rush. This generation has no excuse. If you ask me, the internet has leveled the field. What you do with it determines your future. It's not about who is in power. It's not about what you're building with the power, or it's about what you're building with the power, rather, that you already have. So if Africa is going to drive its digital future, it won't be because someone handed us the keys. It will be because we built engines ourselves. Now, the code is simple. Learn, create, and collaborate. Learn, learn, learn. We heard that from our guest. So you just have to learn, create, collaborate, and keep moving, because the future isn't coming. It's already online. And that's the much we can take on Business Morning segments today. I'm Deborah Eze. Thank you for watching, and do stay with us as the breakfast show continues with a big story with Elizabeth Musa after the short break. Have a good morning.